Mike Norvell started 0-4 last year. And, I didn't have an opinion on his hiring for the most part. I thought that they possibly could have done better. And when I mean better, that doesn't mean that I was forecasting his demise. I was just saying, based on track record and what's already been proven and proven at the Power 5 level, of course, he wasn't the guy. Did a nice job at Memphis. But obviously they saw something in him. No question about that. So obviously he had to take over, maybe this program being in the worst shape that it's been in since the mid 70s. And he's been pushing uphill ever since. And there's been many times where you could see the hope, you could see the optimism, and it looked like there was some substance behind it. And there were other times where it seemed like, man, this may not happen, and he may not be long for this school here. Besides seeing this team get on a run after the 3-game loss this year, what were some indicators for you that that even before it came to fruition that his approach was working?
Well, I'm not one of those. I hate that it looks better. Like I'm a tangible metric guy. 1 + 1 = 2. It's either black. I live in a gray area, but most things to me are black and white. You either are winning or you're losing. There are no good quality losses to me. That's just loser speak. So, and I will admit, he did inherit a bad situation. It's hard to judge mentally how bad the situation was, though. So going back and giving benefit of the doubt, you're these guys' third coach for a lot of these kids. That's not supposed to happen. So you had Jimbo came in, and when Jimbo left, it was like, oh my God, I hated football. He tore me down. He did this. Then Tag comes in, he tries to be the cool stepdad. Like too much fun. They didn't respect that either. So you have a bunch of guys who don't know who to trust, who to respect, or what to do. So they rebel. And then you have COVID that happens, to where the time that you would have normally spent getting to know these guys, you lost. You lost an entire spring. You lost an entire offseason workout. We didn't even know if we were going to have a 2020 season. That being said, you had enough talent to not go 3-6. And what happened was the fan base has been split, and they treat sports like they treat politics and everything else. This is not good versus evil. There is no line in the sand. We're all you're Florida State fans. I can promise you, nobody wants to see Florida State go defeated. But at the same time, people were upset with the Tag hire, how he was fired. And Mike probably got a lot of heat that he didn't earn, but it's because he was the guy. They fired a coach in the middle of the season. Nobody fires a coach in the middle of the season to hire a G5 guy and let him finish coaching. You do that to make a splash hire, a big-time hire, and guys immediately leave. Hell, we just saw with Wisconsin. When they hired the Cincinnati coach, it ain't no waiting. This is Wisconsin. You either stay your ass in Cincinnati or you come up here. So we knew Mike wasn't the first choice, but it's not Mike's fault. Mike is the coach. So people were trying to support him, and they're trying to be overly optimistic. But at the same time, the reasons why you fired the coach before, and now you're looking at what's going on right now, it's looking like you made, at the time, which was still crazy, a $9 million mistake because of what you were paying Norvell and the buyout annually for Willie Taggart. So then the next year comes, and you see they get some pieces. You can see marked improvement, but the team still doesn't look like it belongs. And not just on the field, like not just from the play, but from a size perspective. My son has got a chance to watch high school, college, NFL. I always joke, Trey Coleman is the best reporter on FSU's beat. He's going to always tell you the truth. You look to him. I look to him for guidance. I've actually listened to this young man watch football games. it shocks me how much he actually knows about the game of football for a 9-year-old. It's crazy. I'm not just saying that because he's my son. He ain't any good at playing football right now, but he knows the game. We went to go see FSU's practice in 2021 when they came to Jacksonville. He said, "Dad, is this a high school practice or is this a college practice?" I said, "Jesus, that is not what I wanted. That is not what I wanted to hear." So fast forward, and then even then, they're in situations where they shouldn't have lost 4 games in a row. A play here or there, they win it. There's no excuse to lose to Jacksonville State. Yeah, no excuse to lose to Jacksonville State. You should have beat Notre Dame. You should have, then the game that turned it around, you should have lost to Syracuse. A field goal at the end with Fitz wins you that game. But you did. Should have beat Florida with no staff, but you didn't. 5-7, whatever. You go on. Well, then this time last year, you're bringing in a bunch of guys that nobody knows about. And then I'm not even going to bring up the McKenzie Mill. And I think if you would have let Jordan Travis play and not messed with him in all of 2021, I think your record would have been way different. Fast forward this year, you don't bring in another quarterback. Everybody's fussing at you, yelling at you. Jay Trav's not any good. And I'm just steady listening to coaches. People say this, and I'm steady watching it. And I'm like, yo, I see it. And I remember what Kenny Dillingham told me. And this is what made me change my mind. Listening to coach, one of the things that I get an opportunity to do, I don't interview coaches for a reason. I'll interview Mike once a year just because I should. I like being able to talk to these guys in a real conversation because they ain't gonna talk to me like when I put them on a camera, like they need to. But when Kenny Dillingham told me, and he told me when he took the job at Oregon, he doubled down on it. He said, "James, I'm telling you, Jordan Travis with average athletes around him is a Heisman Trophy candidate." He told me that after we played Miami. He told me that again after he took the Oregon job. He hit me up this season once he got the Arizona job, told me, "I told you about that, boy." So that's in my mind. I'm seeing these guys, don't know anything about them, not even worried about it. I go to the first spring practice. I'm looking. I'm like, man, the offensive line looks massive. They look like they can actually block some people. See Johnny Wilson. I'm like, yo, that is a giraffe walking across here. I'm looking at the guys, and I'm like, I'm seeing physical body types that I'm like, yo, would I have been able to play on this team? That's what time when I go in the locker rooms, I sit back and be like, could I have played on this team? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I would have been, there would have been a spot for me on this team right now. These guys are pretty big and moving. Then I was like, well, it was short. And I made a comment like, this is the best first day of practice I've seen in the last 5 years. And oh God, everybody was just like, they took those words and thought I was winning national championships. I said, hey, calm down. But I've always been, I said, 8 wins, we get on a run, we can win 10. I take my son to the first practice. Again, Trey's the best. Now, Trey is not afraid of anything. Trey has seen celebrities. He has never been in awe. First and foremost, he smiled at Mike Norvell, so I knew something was changing. My son has pictures with Mike Norvell every year he's been there. He's been looking at Mike like he's a loser for most of it. He's like, I can't believe my dad's over here talking about the standard is the standard. Got me around these 3 and 6 losers and jokes like that. Trey sees Mike Norvell, shakes his hand, hugs him, ear-to-ear smile. Crazy ear-to-ear smile. Like just really like excited to be there. Sees Coach Fuller, daps up Coach Fuller, loves Coach Fuller to death. And he ain't telling me this is a high school team anymore. He's like, Daddy, these guys big. They've been eating. They've been drinking. What happened? I said, that's what happens when you're drinking milk, eat your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's when you're going to get big like these guys. And I saw that first day of practice, and it was physical. It was competitive. It was hitting in a manner in which I hadn't seen in some time. And I had some friends who were judging it based upon what they saw at Georgia. And I told them first and foremost, this ain't Georgia. Don't compare us to the university. That's not fair to anybody. But compared to what I've seen in the past, this is a better team. And what we have to face in the ACC, this is a team that can compete for ACC championships. And that was my mindset. And that's what the standard is to me. If we're not competing for an ACC championship, then what are we doing? This is not Wake Forest. This is not this is not NC State, where you've had one 10-win season in your 117 years of existence. This isn't even the University of Florida where you've had 19 in over 100 years of existence. This is Florida State, where in our short amount of time, we've only been playing football, I believe, 69 years. Of that, we've had 25 10-win seasons. Of that, Coach Bowden was a coach for 40 of them. So, like, you could just take, basically most of the time, 29 years were irrelevant outside of Jimbo. Excuse me. So Jimbo had his. So basically, in that time period, we've had 50 years where we've been a legitimate program, and in that time period, you've seen a lot of success. Doesn't mean you're going to always win the championship, but if we weren't in the discussion, like, that would have been crazy. And the craziest thing is, if people want to be untroller, and I know there's going to be trollers in the comment section, but if you go back and you look at the Wake Forest game, imagine Jared Verse being healthy and playing that entire game, and a Fabian Lovett, who I didn't even mention. I forgot about Fabian, who was dominant, crazy dominant when he in that LSU game, but got hurt and could not finish the season. You probably win that game. Imagine Fabian and Verse playing. Imagine Florida State scoring an offensive point, a touchdown, just one point. Three points is all we needed. You beat North Carolina State. What's wild in all of that is, if you win 2 of those 3 games, which you had an opportunity to win, you're not only in the ACC championship, people are going to look at your win against LSU, and if you beat Clemson, your win against Clemson, and your win against North Carolina if you would have had the opportunity. And you know where you're at in year 3 after all of that time? You're talking about a few plays away from being in a college football playoff. Now, we'd have got work like TCU, but the point is that with the roster you had, you're not far away. So, add Jaheim Bell, add Murlock, add Gilbert, add Fisk, add Daryl Jackson, add Deuce from UVA, the cornerback. On top of all of the guys that you have coming back, one could be very, very excited about the upcoming college football season.
Yeah, from a football standpoint, judging it with much less expertise, but still, I watch a lot of football. When they played Clemson last year, the 21 season, and that game went down the last couple minutes of the season, or the last couple minutes of the game, and it wasn't so much just the score on the scoreboard and them coming within a few plays of winning the game or a final drive of winning that game. It was just the physicality of them matching up, and that was the first time in about 5 years I thought I'm watching maybe not a vintage Florida State Clemson game, but I'm watching it actually looks like a Florida State Clemson game for the first time in 5 years. They physically looked like they belonged on the field.
And that's a big thing. It's weird to say these things, but it's what happened. So, yeah, Jimbo came in, and let's say Jimbo fell asleep at the wheel his last year when it came to recruiting. Tag came in and wanted to run an offense that was a complete 180 from what Jimbo was running. Up tempo, run 100 plays, whereas Jimbo was pro style. If you ran 65 plays in a game, that was going to be great. So you're trying to flip that. When you flip that, it takes a training and it takes retraining body types. And that's not really conducive to winning, especially when you try to do it overnight. Then you fire a guy 18 months into trying to change the roster into an up-tempo to be able to come back. So now you've got 3 types of offenses and defenses in a situation where it's going to be tough. So to say we didn't belong and didn't have the body types it's accurate, because we didn't. And it was just because it's impossible, because nobody knew what our identity was. The kids didn't know what their identity was. So, like, well, I would say that too. One of the other things, talking to Kalen DeLoach, who's like a little brother to me. When Kalen said, I said, what's the difference? He said, for the first time, I know what's expected of me. I didn't know, like, in 2020, Norvell wasn't here. I didn't know what to do. 2021, we're still trying to learn them. 2022 is like, all right, I know when period 5 comes, I need to run here. I know the pace. I know. So now that's how you create culture. That's how you create things like that is guys have to know. And I think we took advantage of, not took advantage of it, we took it for granted as Florida State fans, right? So I don't really know what it was like to be Bobby's first team. Like when I came out to practice, I just followed everybody else. When the whistle blew, my seg's going this way. I got to go follow them. Then I see my coach go this way. They didn't have that. Hell, the coaches didn't even know where they were going. Most of them had just got there. So now you finally got guys who know where everything goes and where things are supposed to be placed in. And you know, now we'll see if they can build upon that and if the leaders continue to lead. That's really why I think you'll see. And not just who's the leaders from like vocal and they're going to do leaders follow as well. Who has the ability to step up and take the team on their back, but also be able to follow or be led? If they have that, then they're going to be in a great situation.